And we'll make a start and introduce the Safety at Sea team. We've got Hayden and Callum and Simon, I believe, with us today, coming from the Safety at Sea Southern Pacific. You've got so many hats. You guys are probably better off explaining it than I am, so I don't get it wrong. But thank you very much for joining us today. These guys are really awesome supporters of island cruising and offered to do this great session for us. Obviously, as you're heading up to the islands and cruising around, your dinghy is kind of like your car, isn't it? So it's important to get the right setup. And I remember some people on the rally last year were saying to me that they wish they'd spent a bit more time thinking about their dinghy before they'd left because the one that they took just wasn't really fit for purpose. So when these guys offered to come and do this session, I said yes, please, and we've been catching up to sort of discuss some topics to cover off. So I'll hand over to you guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Vicky. Get it started.
Yeah, we've
So I'll just share the screen.
it's all good.
And I think we can. There we go.
Yep,
Perfect.
I can see that. Looking good.
All right. So yeah, welcome everybody. As Vicky said, I'm Callum with Simon, and we've got Hayden here as well. And so we have a Pacific Rally only a couple of months away. We thought it'd be a really good idea to focus on something that often gets overlooked until it becomes a problem, and that is your tender. Obviously, it's how you get to shore, it's how you restore anchorages, how you get supplies, and often sometimes how you even get out of trouble. So today, we thought what we'll do is we'll go into what makes a good cruising tender, some common issues we see before rallies, how to tell whether your tender is rally ready or might need some attention, when maintenance or redo might make sense, as well as motor safety and sizing for your tender, and also some practical steps you can take in the next couple of months before you head offshore. So today is mainly really about helping you avoid problems once you're already underway. And finally, we'll have a Q&A session. We'll open it up for any questions you guys have. So now I'll hand over to Simon, and you can tell us a bit about Southern Pacific Boats.
Hey everybody, some of you may know me already when you came out to the factory for the tour a month or so back. So we're now Southern Pacific Boats. We used to be Southern Pacific Inflatables, but we do have a few models now that are the tubes they're not inflatable, they're actually foam, so hence the name change if anyone had picked that up. So my background is I was at Zodiac, New Zealand for about 15 years. Obviously importing in those days French inflatables, and then I've been with Southern Pacific for about 14 years, so been around them a wee while. You go to the next one if you want. So it's as Vicky said, these tenders are really your car. You're using these things every day, so they do need to be in good condition. They're getting a hammering, especially up in the islands with the heat and the sun and the UV and everything beating down on them. If it's unstable, underpowered, unreliable, obviously it affects the safety, comfort, access to shore, and your overall experience. Obviously up that way, you're very limited with repair options. Probably Dinghy, I suppose, is the closest place to actually get any repairs done, and I suspect they're probably quite expensive, so it does make sense to make sure they're ready to go. Common issues that we see with inflatables, I guess it depends whether it's PVC or Hyperlon. PVC, if it's an Asian boat, so maybe your likes of Taka Cats, Promarines, Aquamarines, those sort of things, you'll start seeing degradation of the fabric. It'll start to go sticky, can start to go brown. Obviously, a lot of you guys fish out of them, so fish spine holes is another thing that we see. It's quite common. very hard to find, but easy enough to fix. Another shout out for as well is trapping the string under the valve cap. A lot of people do that after they inflate it, and that can cause the boat to leak as well. Hypalon boats, obviously because they're glued, you can see some seam issues. So if you soap test the boat just with a mixture of dishwashing liquid and soapy water, and you brush that over the seams, with an old Hypalon boat, you'll start to see fizzing around the seams. So that's starting to tell you that the glue is breaking down. And also the top layer will start to burn. You'll start to see what looks like canvas underneath the coloured fabric. That's another sure sign that the tube is sort of on its last legs. So I was just talking then about PVC and Hypalon. So we do all fabrics, whether it be new or retubing. So PVC or polyvinyl chloride, I guess the easiest way to explain it is it's basically just a flexible plastic. So we weld that, so the seams are welded, so the seams are the strong point. Then the other type of fabric you'll see there is TPU, which is thermoplastic polyurethane. Yet again, it's a flexible fabric that can be welded. And then there is Hypalon. Now, Hypalon is it's a bit like the word sellotape. It's just a generic name. It doesn't actually exist as such anymore. It was DuPont stopped making it in 2010. So what we actually have now is a product called CSM, which is chlorosulfonated polyethylene, which is very similar, but certainly not as good as the Hypalon of days gone by. The original Hypalons, you'd be getting 30 years out of the fabric, and now you're probably around the 15, 20-ish year mark for it. So Hypalon has to be hand glued. So it's an expensive fabric, you have to hand glue it, whereas the other two are cheaper fabrics, but you can weld them. So for example, say a 5-metre tube in PVC or TPU, we can weld that together and make an actual tube in about 5 hours. Whereas if the equivalent Hypalon tube was made, it would probably be 10 days to make the tube. So you can see why Hypalons are a lot more expensive than the other two options. PVC is the cheaper of the fabrics. Not saying there's anything wrong with it, it's cheaper to manufacture and cheaper to make. TPU is in the middle of the two, so it's what we call a blended fabric. So it's a blend of PVC and also of the thermoplastic polyurethane. The beauty of blending it is that it can be welded, whereas 100% TPU can't be welded, it can only be glued. So then it'd be a toss-up between do you go Hypalon or TPU because of the labour content. So hopefully that gives you some sort of simple idea of what the fabrics are, because I do find when people ring me, there's a lot of confusion of the difference between fabrics. Stability and design. Hull shape, obviously, we've been around probably 30 years now, and early days of hull design, a lot of it was just done on the back of the fag packet, for want of a better word. Now everything's CAD, and a designer actually designs all the hulls, they test them. So times have definitely changed. Tube diameters, if you look at our boats, the little puffins, which you're probably aware of, probably the lightest tender on the market, they have a 330 diameter tube, so it's quite a small diameter, but it keeps the weight down. And then if you go up into the shearwater models, they have a 420 at the rear tapering to 360. So a lot bigger diameter, makes it a lot drier. You're higher out of the water, more stability, bigger horsepower because of the buoyancy. And you can see those photos there. The one on the right, that's a shearwater there. So a lot bigger and more capable than a puffer, but a lot heavier, obviously. Did you want to talk to the passengers and the fuel and the gear and all that stuff?
We'll be covering some of the those items.
Okay.
Next slides.
Other thing to note with tubes and tube diameter is that a lot of inflatables on the market, the tubes are not actually they're not active in the water, so they don't provide any buoyancy as such. They're basically just a large fender. I guess looking at larger boats, you'd see that more often than not. So in the likes of sort of race boats, that sort of thing, if you look at them at rest, the tubes actually touch the water. If that's the case with a smaller tender, then you have problems with stability. So if you leaned over, for example, it will keep tipping until the tube hit the water, which can be a little bit unsettling. Our boats are all designed so that the rear of the, as you can see in that photo, kisses the water. So that gives you that stability if you're at rest. If you lean over, it doesn't tip. I know the early active roads that I've been in, it can be quite unsettling. Yep. Talk about the motors.
Yes, I'm Hayden. Joined the team back in October, so very much involved in the sales department. So any sales-related questions, please reach out. So we've been the Dinghy agent for the past 15 years. We also service the engine, service any engine well, normally about a week and a half lead time. So the engine size is important to get right. That's on the back of your boat on the verification plate. The general rule of thumb for the smaller tenders, you're looking at a 4 horsepower to 6 or 8. For the larger ones, more of like a 10. So it's super important to have a wire or line attached in case if you do hit a reef or something like that, then the engine does come off, then it's still going to be tied onto the boat. We also can arrange covers, either custom or stock covers. We've got a local sale mate covers, and super important to keep the engine protected if you're not using it, keep it out of the sun, especially in the tropics, can get pretty hot there. But most probably always with your kill cord, we see a lot of people doing short transfers into the beach. Yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen accidents, so it's super important. But we carry a pretty good stock here. We don't have so the next one.
I think you covered that. Okay, the right tender, upgrade, prepare. Ask yourself, how many people do you want to put on the boat as a general rule with equipment? So all the registration plates have a payload rating on them. So we go on payload rather than people. So a lot of the tenders you'll see have 3 people, but obviously, what size person? Most people will be carrying a dog and a chili bin or whatever. So it's quite important to sort of work out how much you want to carry. Obviously, your budget comes into it. And what sort of boat, how far do you want to go? Do you want just something light and very simple, just to go 200 metres boat to shore? Or do you need something more substantial with a larger horsepower? But I mean, all that's fairly much common sense. You'll know, how big it needs to be and where you're going to store it. On to the next one. How are you going to store it? Is it going to go on the foredeck? Are you going to put it on the duck board? How are you going to lift it? Are you going to lift it with a halyard? Have you got a crane? If you've got a crane, what's the weight rating? So yet again, all those things need to come into your decision as to what you actually buy. Most of the small tenders have internal lifting points, so there'll be 2 in the transom and 1 in the bow. As you can see from that photo there, there's a 3-point lift, just lifting off the halyard. But we do also fit quite a lot of Weaver dinghy davits, which I'm sure you've all seen. It's just basically a rubber pad that glues onto the side of the tube where the handles would be. and then that in turn locates generally on the duck board. So as you come along to the duck board, it clips into little receivers, and then you just pull the tender up on the side. The drawback with the likes of having it on the foredeck, obviously you've got to have custom cradles made, unless you're just tipping it upside down. But most people would have cradles that the tender actually sits the right way up. So yeah, that's probably all on that, I think.
So onto the essential tender kit. I think the biggest thing is when you're away in a tropical island, it's very hard to get things. So here's a bit of a reminder of some things that are quite good to have a spare, and some things that are super essential. So yeah, obviously again, always wear your kill cord. Probably good to have a spare one of those just in case you lose one of those. Selecting the correct life jackets. See a lot of people on tenders. Once again, it's a short trip. They don't always wear a life jacket, but super important. Especially if you've got kids on board. The weather can change even if it's a short trip. I'd always carry a baler on board. Make sure you're tied on, or a big pump. I would probably definitely carry a spare bung as well, which we have in stock. Obviously, different types of oars. For the puffin, for the smaller boats, we have a 2-piece option. For the shearwater, there's 1 piece, and then the short tenders we carry the wooden continuous ones. Make sure that the oars are secure. It's again good to carry some spares. Selecting the right size anchor, super important. We supply the Delta anchors mainly. Good idea to have a throw bag on board in case someone does fall overboard. I've got some flotation. If it's dark, it's super important to I'd have a grab bag that I'd call it, essentially with a sound device, including a first aid kit, waterproof torch, VHF. I'd probably have a VHF that I'd just leave in that grab bag so you don't forget. There's enough space to put some food and water in that bag as well in case you get caught out. Other options would be carry a small fire extinguisher. Navigation lights is an option, and a PLB. Have been super popular these days. But yeah, we give a good discount, 10% off to you guys, and really appreciate everyone's buy-in. We've been selling quite a few life rafts, and at the end of the day, we just want to make sure you guys are safe, whether you're in a big boat or a small boat. It's all the same.
Okay, so just moving into repairs and retubes versus new. We see and we do a lot of repairs and retubes, especially in the climate at the moment. People are always trying to save $1, so if it's worthwhile retubing, it is a good option. As a general rule, if your boat's under about 3 meters, it's normally about half the cost of a new one, so it's quite attractive. And if it's a smaller boat, it's cheaper again. But there are conditions. Obviously, if it's an aluminium hull and the alloy is cracked, or the powder coating is flaking off in sheets, it's probably not a good idea to retube it, because you really need to sandblast the hull and repowder coat it. And by the time you go down that road, you're up around the same sort of dollars as a new one. But we would advise on that anyway at the time when we saw it. We don't just retube things if we don't think it's going to be worthwhile. As a general rule, retubing, you wouldn't bother doing it if you were doing it to sell it. You would only do it if you're going to keep the boat. You wouldn't recoup your money. Yet again, it would depend on what your budget is, whether you went with PVC or TPU or Hypalon. There's obviously quite large price differences. So, for example, if it was $3,000 to retube a boat in PVC, you could pretty much double that in Hypalon. We don't see a lot of small tenders in Hypalon, even though it would be preferable up in the tropics due to the UV. A lot of people now are just marine shielding the tubes. Obviously, you guys are familiar with charter covers, which you see a lot up in the tropics. These are really expensive to have made and fitted. You're probably looking over $2,500 on a little 3-meter boat. Whereas now people are heading towards marine shield, which is just a clear coat that goes over the top of the tubes. You're about $700 to do that, and that's a one and done and a life, basically the life of the tubes. Another factor to consider is there's still a lot of old Aquapros out there. 04 to 09, they went to China, and if you read a lot of stories online about it, they had no end of problems. They didn't prepare the hulls properly, so all the paint flakes off, and we can't retube them without sandblasting and repowder coating. So from a smaller boat perspective, up to about 3.5 meters, you wouldn't bother doing it. Yet again, you'd have to spend too much money. You just buy new. But that's Aquapros. What else got here? We can retube any size rib or any make. Anything sort of from about 2 meters, and the largest we've done is 15 meters. So it doesn't really matter what you've got. We will advise whether it's worth doing or not. And yeah, we only retube ribs. Often people will ring me up and they'll say they've got a roll up. So like a soft hull with a wooden transom. We don't do those yet again. It's not worthwhile doing it. It costs more to rebuild the whole boat than what a new one would be. So you've obviously heard the term RIB, which stands for rigid inflatable boat. So if you hear that term, that's what it means. Or an RHIB, same thing as just a rigid hull inflatable boat, more commonly used in the States as a term. And repair-wise, yet again, we would look at it. We would soak them depending on what the problem is. And we would tell you whether it's worth repairing or not, or approximately how much it costs to repair. As I said before, normally what we see is fish is the main reason for leaks, which is a relatively fast. So here we have our more common models in the smaller tender range. We've got our puffins, which are very light, probably the lightest ones on the market. And they range from about $3,300 for the small ones up to sort of $3,400 for the 2.6. So they're the ones with the 330 diameter tubes. They're quite small, but great for just going boat to shore if it's a short distance and it's not too rough. Then you move up into the shear waters, which are the larger diameter tube. And so you can see the difference there between the shape of the boat as well. So the shear water is what we call a continuous curve tube. You'll see there's no seam as such until you get to the front bow panel versus the puffin, which is a segmented tube. You can see there's sort of like a kick up with an angle there. The tubes are joined at that point. So they look totally different. The shear water has rub straight, whereas the puffin doesn't. The shear water has proper feathering oars, where the puffin just has a fixed oar that pivots on a bolt. So that's the main differences between them. And the shear water will take a larger horsepower motor, obviously, as they get bigger. They range in price from about $4,300 for the 2.6 up to about $5,200 for the larger 340. And then fairly new to our livery is the shore tender. So these are a carbon hull with a foam fender, and they have carbon keel strip on them as well. Obviously, a large price difference between the shore and the other two models. These are around the 15,500. Quite popular on the large catch, your lagoons and what have you.
Yeah, you can fit quite a lot of passengers on board the short tender.
So that's a bit of a sad looking photo there, but kind of demonstrates the point that you can see all the fabric rolls in the background there. So we carry all the fabric in stock. Everything is made in New Zealand. Our alloy hulls are all made by a local fabricator up in Silverdale. They're all powder coated up there, and all the tubes are made on site, whether it be welded tubes. We have our own welding machine, and the Hyperlon tubes are all hand glued. So yeah, anything inflatable related, we can help. If you can't get your boat into us, just send me some photos, and I can advise whether I need to see it or not. But most times, photos are fine. Yeah, that's probably all from me. If anyone's got any questions, I can try to answer them.
That's great. Thanks so much, Simon. And I highly recommend to everyone to go for a look at your factory. Like, it was amazing seeing that cutting machine and how you weld everything together. It was fascinating coming out to see how it all works. So yeah, tell us where you guys are based.
Yeah, so we're in Kumeu, 22 Araha Road. We're there Monday to Friday, 8 till 4:30. And yeah, always welcome to come in for a coffee and a look round. No problem at all.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I love seeing how things are made. That was awesome. We haven't got any questions in the chat, but I've got a couple of sort of things that I might just sort of add to people about sort of safety in dinghies and things that we've kind of seen along the way with the rally. So we've lost a couple of dinghies that have kind of magically become untied somehow. I don't know how that possibly could have happened, but I think a key, super easy thing that you can do with your dinghy is put your phone number on it so that if another cruiser finds it, they can quickly and easily give you a call and return it to you. So it's a nice, easy thing to do. If you find a dinghy and you've got a phone number on it, it's easy to return it to its owner, and very difficult if there's no markings on it or no phone number. So just get a Vivid pen or even make yourself a nice little label and put your phone number on your dinghy. Much easier to get it back that way, and it's a real hassle trying to get a new dinghy when you're up on the island. So that's one thing. Obviously, making sure that you can tie a good knot and keep it safely attached to your boat. I also like to pull my dinghy up every night and just keep it out of the way. We haven't lost too many dinghies in terms of people pinching them, but it does happen sometimes. And sometimes you never know whether it's just your knot that's come untied or whether your dinghy actually has been stolen. I recommend that you obviously take lights in your dinghy, a torch at least, or get those great lights. Do you have those Railblazer dinghy lights, Hayden? Do you have those or other dinghy lights in stock?
Yeah, we've got quite a good range of lights, nav lights, and all sorts. But yeah, torch is definitely is key. We do special lightweight ones. Yeah, super
Definitely.
important.
Yeah, it gets light. It gets dark really early in the tropics, right? So it's like 6 o'clock at night. It's dark, so you can quickly and easily get kind of caught out. And particularly in places like Fiji, the Fijians just like roar around in their big longboats, and if you haven't got a light, you can so easily get run over. I don't know how there's not more injuries or crashes and stuff in places like Muscat Cove, because the locals just roar through that anchorage. If you haven't got a light, they can't see you, and they can hardly see you anyway out the front of those big longboats. So just make yourself as visible as you possibly can by having a torch, and even the fixed nav lights on your dinghy is a really key thing. The other thing is also obviously having, you know, as Hayden mentioned, some safety equipment and things on board. We had one boat on the rally a few years ago back in Minerva Reef. They were only in Minerva with one other boat who wasn't actually on the rally, and they went for a big tour around Minerva on a really nice day, bit of a light breeze. And when they got to the other side of the reef, their motor wouldn't start. And of course, they were in a really big dinghy. It would have been really hard to row upwind back to their boat, as 5 miles away. So just having, luckily they had a VHF radio, and luckily the other boat in the anchorage had their radio turned on, so they were able to go and rescue them. So just obviously make sure that you carry plenty of fuel, and you've got a VHF radio or some form of comm so that you can call someone or let someone know where you're going and when you're going to be back, or go together like on the rally with people, so your safety in numbers if you do have a problem. And the other thing I'd say would be to always wear your kill cord with the motor. We have had one rally boat, one of the crew members was dropping someone off to another boat, and sadly fell out of the dinghy as they were going along. The dinghy got out of control and really badly in this anchorage, like zooming round and round and round. This guy luckily didn't lose his head, but he had propeller cuts all across his forehead, and nearly injured another rally participant that was trying to come to their rescue. So just always wear that kill cord. If you don't wear your kill cord, just do a bit of a Google search for propeller injuries, and that might sort of let you know why you should wear that kill cord in your dinghy every single time. I know it's easy to get complacent, especially up in the islands. You know, people don't tend to wear their life jackets as regularly as they do here in New Zealand or Australia. So just, you know, think safety. Sort of things can go from being heaps and heaps of fun to being a real big disaster really quickly. So those are just a couple of my little thoughts about dinghy safety. But enough from me. We've got a few questions now. So Holly says, we have a TPU dinghy we bought from you, 4 years old, looks perfect, except for the PVC label, which is melting. Where do we look for on those? What do we look for on those for wear? I'm not sure if I understand that.
No, I don't.
Might just rephrase it.
The logos, the PVC logos, it'll say Southern Pacific Inflatables or Southern Pacific on it. They are PVC, but they have a clear lacquer on the top of them. And I suspect she probably means the lacquer has started to be damaged by the UV. They can go brown. Depending on where the boat is, whether it's in Australia or up in the tropics, you could see that after sort of 4 years. We do have them where we can replace them, no problem. But it sounds like the actual tube is in good nick, which is important.
Yeah. Well, maybe Holly, you could send some pictures to Simon. He might be able to give you some advice. That's probably the way to do it.
Sure.
I think they're up in Marsden. So Claire says dinghy becomes untied at night because of ouzo knots. Too much ouzo before tying up the dinghy. Yeah, that sounds right. I know my bowlines sometimes are not the right bowlines, so that's probably some problem with that. Wayne says, I lost a tube in my Thundercat days due to the heat out of the water. Any suggestions on pressure adjustment on the deck when in hot areas such as Queensland, Australia? That's a good question. Yeah, what pressure should we have our tubes at?
As a general rule, you're about max 3 psi. The problem with Thundercats is they have a glued seam. They're a South African boat that, they're pretty much made on dirt floors, so they're just made cheaply and quickly. We call them firecrackers out here because they constantly go bang.
Oh.
But yeah, I would be, if it was a really hot day, I'd be letting a lot of the pressure out, like down to about 1 psi, and then just pumping it up when you actually need to use it. I know it's a hassle, but all those glued seam boats, that's just what you're up against. It's your weak point.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's heat activated. So, you know, on a really hot day, it's softening that glue. And if you've got too much pressure in it, it'll just go bang.
Yeah, good advice. Okay. Richard says, I've seen dinghies with UV covers when on the water. Is this a good idea? And if so, where do you get them?
So that's what we were talking about before with what we call chaps or charter covers, I guess. So it's quite an expensive thing to have made. Most upholsterers will make them, or marine trimmers. So the procedure is basically I have to glue Velcro onto the tube first around the perimeter of the tube on the inside and the outside. And then a marine trimmer will pattern basically a second skin that Velcros onto that. So if you got any change out of $2.5 grand for those, you'd be lucky, depending on the size of the boat. But that would be an average.
I bet they're a
and
fiddly thing to make.
yeah, and to get right too, because you don't want them all flopping around. They need to be taut. The problem I find with them is that the UV just nukes those as well. So even if you make them out of good sunbrella, 5 years down the track, they're shredded and you've got to buy new ones. Whereas if you go for the option of Marine Shield, which is painted on, it doesn't even look like there's anything on it, and it'll protect the fabric. And another thing, obviously, that people use charter covers for is if it's a charter boat, obviously, where people are getting on it and off it all the time, sitting on it. It keeps people's clothes clean. So there are pluses and minuses with the two, but if it was me, I'd go with Marine Shield.
Yeah, good advice. And what about cleaning your dinghy? I remember hearing once that you shouldn't use stuff like spray and wipe and stuff. There's like special cleaner for your dinghies and stuff. What do you recommend for cleaning them?
So we use a product called August Race, which is an English product. The beauty of that product is it doesn't have any silicone in it. A lot of these snake oils that you buy off the shelf will have silicone, like Armour Oils, those type things. And while it makes your dinghy look shiny and it looks all nice, if you have a problem and you've got to repair it, no matter what you do to clean it, the glue won't stick to it anymore. So you never put anything with silicone anywhere near your tubes.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, August Race is, that's my snake oil of choice.
Yeah, there's different types. There's one for the hull as well. So it's a good product. We've plenty of it in stock.
Because I heard some of those products can also degrade the glue. Is that right? Like if you use the wrong thing on your dinghy when you're cleaning it, Jif or whatever it's.
Yeah, you definitely have to be careful. I mean, most of the fabrics have a lacquer over the top of them, which is the UV protectant. And some of those abrasives, once you damage that lacquer, the UV is just straight onto the top coat of the fabric. There's no protection anymore. So yeah, for sure, you've got to be careful what you put on it.
Yeah. And what about wheels and things? What do you recommend for sort of wheels and pulling dinghies up the beach and that sort of stuff?
So I guess it's horses for courses. Obviously, the really small dinghies, you're limited with your transom space. So something like just those little plastic dinghy dollies that you buy from Burns Co or wherever. The only problem with those is in really soft sand, they're not great. They'll just dig a track. But of course, if you wanted to go like, Railblazer sand track wheels or beach masters, you don't really have the space on the transom because obviously the motor's got to tilt left and right. And if there's not enough room there, that won't happen. So yeah, it's really size related and budget, I guess, because you could be $80 for a dinghy dolly versus $450 for your beach masters. So yeah.
Yeah, good to know. Claire's just said the same thing. Beach masters are the bomb, fabulous. Plastic wheels sink into the sand are close to useless. I've learnt that myself the hard way, totally.
The only thing I would say about beach masters from experience, not that you can see the scar on my leg, but you need to maintain them because they run in an inner tube. And if you don't lubricate the axles and the pivoting points and you get a flat, you can't get that axle out. It actually welds itself in there. Then how do you fix it? So then you've got to somehow try and chop the axle out and buy a new wheel. So maintain them if you use those wheels because they will go flat.
Yeah, good advice. Holly says Danard makes very fine dinghy wheels too. I haven't heard of them, but I'll check them out as well. That's good to know. Very cool. And also like a ladder. Do you have ladders and things that you can get back into the dinghy? Sometimes that's something I struggle with is trying to pull yourself back in again. What do you have?
So, there's a company called Dixon Stainless. and they make really cool ladders that glue onto the tube. It's just a sort of a folding ladder that's curved, so it shapes to the shape of the tube. Or obviously for larger boats, you can go up the transom. But no, certainly we can arrange those.
Yeah, nice. Great stuff. Is there anything else you guys would like to add, or anything you've thought of, or any other questions? I think I've answered all the questions in here, but obviously, how do people kind of Tango says we were asking specifically for what to look for as TPU ages versus PVC.
Okay, so
yeah.
very similar things to look for. Obviously, TPU, as I said, is a blended fabric, so it's a blend of PVC and TPU. So you'll see browning on the top of the fabric, or you could see or start to see or feel some stickiness. Also, if you actually smell the fabric, normally, which sounds weird, apologies, but PVC TPU has no smell at all. If it's getting damaged and burnt, you can actually smell the sort of a weird burning plastic smell. So that's something else that shows that you've got a problem, which is why you put covers or marine shield on it. I guess the other thing with PVC is nowadays with these sunscreens, which are 50 plus, if you've ever seen what it does to the clears on your boat when you stick your hands on your clears, or if you look at the paintwork on your car after someone's got into their car and stuck their sunscreen handprints on it, it just nukes the paint. So you can imagine it does the same thing to the fabric. So if you're slathered in sunscreen and you're sitting on that tube and then the sun is reacting with that, that can exacerbate it as well. So
yeah, it's true. Probably
okay.
deep
No, it's not
into
simple. When you're up there, you're going to be covered in sunscreen. You're going to be touching stuff.
yeah.
But wear these new sunscreens are a nightmare.
Yeah, that's interesting. John's asked what type of repair kits are best and what should be included in a repair kit. It's a good question, John.
So I guess you're talking for the tubes. So first of all, you would make sure that the repair kit you've got matches the type of fabric you've got. If you've got a Hypalon inflatable, you need Hypalon glue, PVC inflatable, PVC glue, obviously. You can get emergency tube glues, but in my experience, they don't really last that long. I guess it's the sort of thing, if you're out on an island and you had nothing else, you could just quickly patch it with that. But then when you get back to, I don't know, civilization, I guess, for want of a better word, you have a two-pot glue and do it properly. Anything air holding, really, it needs to be a two-pot glue. The problem with those is they have a shelf life, normally around 6 months. The hardener doesn't like, once you let air into it, it doesn't like it. So, yeah, hopefully that sort of answers that one.
Yeah, okay, that's a good call. So don't expect that it's going to be still there if you've used it already. It's probably buggered and you might need a new pack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good questions, everyone. Well, thank you so much. How does everyone get in touch with you guys if they've got any questions, and what's the best way to look you up? What's the website?
Pop that through now. There we go.
Yeah, that's Simon or myself. We've got pretty good stock available. If we don't have the size of stock, it's our lead time in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, 2 to 3 weeks for a new boat, obviously, and then similar for a retube. Repairs, sort of depends what's wrong with it, I suppose. But with a repair, obviously, we don't sort of give it back until we've tested it to make sure it's okay. So it's not the sort of thing you want to rush. So people say, "Oh, can I drop it off today and pick it up tomorrow?" Well, there's no test time in that. So generally, if it's a simple repair, you'd sort of allow a couple of days.
Nice. And because you make the boats here in New Zealand, you can, people can come and sort of see you and get custom, design things that they want to have specifically for their setup.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Nice. Oh, thank you so much, you guys. It's been awesome catching up with you, and thanks everyone for tuning in. And I'll give these guys a call if you've got any questions and want to chat more about dinghies. It's awesome.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks so much. See you later.
Thanks very much. Good session. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.